Hey, what's going on guys, Khraze here, welcome back to another Outriders video. Today let's take a look at some really important tips and things that the game doesn't outright tell you or make immediately obvious. And many of these will help you progress with your character, get better or get really interesting things. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. By the way, I'm also giving away a free copy of Outriders on Steam, so if you want to win that, all you have to do is to be subscribed to the channel, leave a like on this video and simply take part in it by using the links down below, and I will announce the winner over here on this channel and via the email address provided in about 2 more weeks from this point. Anyway, let's begin right off the bat with one that helped me a ton in making a more interesting kind of build for my character, and that is you can totally get epics even in the free demo. It's not from the regular old drops, but rather from the 2 available vendors back at Outpost. So in this Outpost you're going to find these 2 vendors. One of them is unlocked through one of these side missions, but once you do that you're going to get access to a vendor that sells armors and another one that sells weapons. Well, here is the thing: if you pay attention to the items on sale, every now and then you might notice that one of these items could very well be an epic. From my experience, it was almost always the one on sale that was also of epic quality, but just keep in mind that this one is on a 1-hour cooldown. Meanwhile, the regular offer is going to be on a 30-minute cooldown, but I haven't yet seen any epics in that section at all. Another thing is that if one of the vendors features an epic in its on sale section, there's a really high chance for some reason for the second one to also do pretty much the same. So you can totally grab up a piece of gear and a weapon in one single rotation, which is going to help you a ton. Now, why would you even need a purple piece of gear? Well, it's pretty simple. It also gives you access to a second modding slot with an even more powerful effect than the first one on the regular rare gear. So in this case you can come up with some really interesting builds or interesting fun ways to further play with your character. Moving on to number 2, another thing that the game doesn't make immediately obvious to you is the fact that simply dismantling an item is going to be way more beneficial to you than selling it outright to a vendor, even though selling will give you about 3 times the amount of scraps than you normally would get from the same item by simply scrapping it. But if you do that, you will lose a ton of the long-term benefits that you might get, including unlocking shards and even more important mods that you can use on other crafting recipes and slotting them on different items later on when the full game releases. So I will totally make a full guide when the game comes out on that, which also brings us to the specific terminologies and icons you will see on any specific item card. So let me explain you what these do. First of all, right next to your modding slots you will notice that you can find a couple of different types of icons. The first one is going to be this square with 4 smaller squares right next to it. What this means is that you have already unlocked that specific mod and it's already available for you to use in a crafting recipe later on. On the other hand, if you don't see any icon next to a mod, like for example in the tier 2 mod right next to this shotgun, this means that you have yet to unlock that specific mod and you will need to scrap a gear with that mod to even unlock it in the first place. So in this case I will need to scrap this shotgun or a duplicate of it to unlock it in my crafting recipes. You can see this in even greater detail if you simply mark one or multiple items for dismantling and then just hover over the dismantle button. And what this does is that it shows you all of the required information, including what you would get from dismantling those items, like resources, shards and finally mods in case you unlock something new. Then there's also going to be this red icon next to the mod slot that also comes with a red background. As you might have guessed, this just indicates that you already have a duplicate of that mod on a different piece of gear that you have equipped on your character. So it would be a waste to, well, just equip 2 items with the same mod because they just get overridden and you don't get double the benefits, so just try to avoid that. The final icon that I will talk about is going to be the shard. So on the secondary stats right beneath the primary one, either on weapons or armor, you might notice that at least one of these stats will sometimes have an icon right next to it. What this means is that if you happen to dismantle that item, you will get a shard with that specific stat on it. So let's say for example I want to dismantle this weapon right here that has a critical damage shard icon right next to that stat. What would happen in this case is that I would get a critical damage shard as a result of dismantling that, which I can later use in crafting on a different weapon to boost that specific stat onto it. So this is the type of gameplay you're going to do in the end game, where you're going to try to fully maximize, mix and match and min-max everything when it comes to your build, your character, and there is a lot of room for that in this game. Moving on next, another big mistake that I'm seeing a ton of you guys doing is not playing the game in a proper way, especially so relying too much on the cover system. Let me know down below how many of you were out there just staying behind cover, trying to take enemies from afar, or trying to hide from enemies because you were taking too much damage. This is not the proper way to play, as counterintuitive as it might sound, because you don't get at least half of the benefits that any of the classes in the game will give you, and I will explain you in just a little bit. Because in Outriders, the best defense is to be as offensive as possible. So let's take a look at any of these class benefits. If you take a look at the Technomancer, this is kind of like a leech type of class, as in you get healed as you deal more damage to the enemies. If you take a look at the Pyromancer, you get healed as you kill enemies that are under the effects of fire, your fire in this case. The same goes with the Trickster, you actually get both a heal and a shield in that case if you just kill enemies at a close range. And then the Devastator, he gets healed by simply being close to the enemies and killing them, kinda like how the Trickster does it minus the shield, though in the case of the Devastator you get an even better one from one of your active abilities. So all of these classes heavily rely on being very close to the enemy, dealing damage, killing them fast, and that's how you get healed in Outriders. In fact, doing that and combining that with spamming your abilities is what makes this game fun. It makes it a little bit different, and it's gonna be way better than just hiding behind a corner and waiting for the enemy to just flank you, because that's also what they do, by the way. They will flank you, they will push you out, they can destroy the environment, so you don't really have a choice but to go on the offensive instead of being on the defensive. This also means that you have to pay a lot of attention to the mods that you have available, especially on your gear, because you're going to want to aim for those who specifically affect the weapons or the skills that you use the most in combat. Like for example, in the case of my Trickster, I really like those Twisted Rounds ability that simply melts enemies, and even more so, it's amazing against bosses. So I went ahead and tried to get as many pieces that provide bonuses to that, like for example the headpiece right here that increases the firepower by 15%, and then there's the legs that also make it heal as I deal damage with that ability active, essentially turning me into kind of like a Technomancer that also gets healed as you deal damage against the enemy. And there's many more possibilities right there on top. The final one that I will mention, and something that took me quite a bit to actually find out, is the fact that if you hold certain abilities, especially throwables, like for example for the Technomancer, you will gain a lot more control when it comes to how you deploy those items or skills. Like let's say for example one of the turrets and the grenade that the Technomancer has, if you just press the button, he is just going to throw them randomly somewhere in front of you, and that's probably going to not be that beneficial. So if instead of doing that you just hold that skill for like a little bit over a second and then let go of that button, you will see that now there's an indicator that will show you exactly where that grenade or turret will land into, and that's gonna be way more useful if you go in combat against enemies, if you want to flash them from behind cover, or if you want to put a strategic turret that takes everybody in front of it. It's going to be way better if you just have that indicator. So again, hold that key for like a split second right there and then let it go, and you should see that indicator appearing on your screen. There's going to be a lot more content like this on this channel, by the way. I'm going to bring you guys a ton of tips and tricks and, well, videos like these. So if you want to stay tuned for that and for more Outriders content, definitely make sure you leave a like on this video, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.